Hello folks, it's Bradley J and we are in Paris with Bradley J Travel. And we're going to do a lot. We're going to see the tower and all that. We're going to go to a beautiful, cool, bustling market. Going to have some great escargot, some unbelievable oysters, and we're going to take a D-Day tour in Normandy. Are you ready? Let's do this.
Arrived about 9:30, took the train, not a cab, saving some money. And Shannon took a nap right away. And I went out scouting for a place to have cocktails and maybe something to eat that evening. And found this. Beautiful place, very friendly people. And they had a happy hour in the afternoon. Selected cocktails like this were about €8. After my successful scouting trip, we went for a walk. And walked over a bridge. And yep, we felt like we were in Paris. The weather was great. Along the edges of the Seine, there are these stalls that sell books and art. You've probably seen them on TV. We walked down the stairs and got, right at river level and walked a bit and boom, there's Notre Dame. Under construction. Do you think it'll be ready for the Olympics? I don't. If you're into architecture, as I am, well, you will enjoy Paris because there are some real architectural gems. And the famous café culture is real and alive. And it's unique. I'm not really able to put my finger on what makes it different, but it is. This is our meal the first night. Started off with a pâté, which was very firm, not like I'm used to. I'm used to a pasty kind, like a spreadable kind. But this was like a loaf. And the wine was wonderful as well. And not all that expensive. Probably paid less for this meal, including the beef bourguignon here, than we would have in Boston, which is my hometown. There was the first course, the pâté, the beef bourguignon, and then the cheese course. And then it was a nice stroll back to our lodging and off to bed to get ready for a big day two. The second day started out with a visit to Cimetière du Père Lachaise, where Jim Morrison is buried, along with lots of famous people, including Edith Piaf and Marcel Marceau. We made our way to Jim Morrison's grave, which was fairly interesting for some reason. Right near his grave is a tree that people stick gum on. And there it is. And there's Jim Morrison's grave. Certainly not the biggest, but it is one of the most popular. There were lots and lots of crows there, and it made me think it'd be a great setting for an Edgar Allan Poe story. Then we walked back the other way quite a way until we came to Marché des Enfants Rouges, which means Market of the Red Children. Why would you name a market Market of the Red Children? Well, it refers to the nearby Hospice des Enfants Rouges, where orphans were clothed in the color red, because red is the color of charity. It's a great market. You can bet, since Paris is such a food city, that this market is top-notch. Now time to see some sights. Here's the Louvre Palace. And after seeing buildings like this, I'm not at all surprised that there was a revolution. The museum is really something to see. I've seen it before, but it didn't interest me today because the line was so long and we had other fish to fry. It rained on and off, and that was significant because I was concerned about getting a cold. Happily, I managed to make it through the trip before there were any signs of a cold. This is Shannon feeding the crows in Jardin des Tuileries, which is located between the Louvre and Place de la Concorde, which is the site of numerous guillotinings during the French Revolution. In fact, Marie Antoinette lost her head there. And finally, after endless walking in cold and semi-rainy conditions, we made it to the Tour Eiffel. It's cool. We'd walked over 10 miles by that point, and it was time to find the perfect restaurant. You know how when you're looking for restaurants, you gotta just kind of judge by the vibe, and a lot of times you're wrong. Well, this time we were right. It was spectacular. That is duck shepherd's pie. I admit it doesn't look like much, but it was wonderful. When you go to a foreign country and get something to eat, I'm guessing you want something different in terms of texture and taste. Well, this was both. Shannon enjoyed what I believe is the duck confit. I mentioned architecture before. Here's an example of a building built in the 1500s. Construction method's called wattle and daub, wattle being the sticks and daub being the stuff in between the sticks. And there we have some escargot. We had much escargot on the trip, and some French onion soup. It was everything you would hope. Look at that. Yum. And there we have the boeuf bourguignon. We actually got one of those types of Dutch ovens when we got home. The bars in France are, to use the words of Rick Steves, convivial. And so ends a big day 2 in Paris. Morning day 3 off to Normandy. Once again, we got lucky with our lodging. This is our Bayeux lodging, and it was right in the center of town. This is the backside, nice grounds. It was a fairly last-minute acquisition, like the day before, I guess. Shannon and I tend to go on shorter trips so we can kind of justify nicer places. So this is Bayeux, and it is old. As a matter of fact, it was founded in the 1st century BC as a Gallo-Roman settlement. Then in the 9th century, it was destroyed by the Vikings. In the 11th century, the cathedral, the Bayeux Cathedral, was built by William the Conqueror's half-brother, a person named Odo, Earl of Kent, and it was dedicated in 1077. And it was under Richard the Lionheart that Bayeux was able to purchase a municipal charter. Now I'm going to skip way ahead and tell you that during the Second World War, Bayeux was the first city in the Battle of Normandy to be liberated. And on the 16th of June in 44, Charles de Gaulle made the first of 2 big speeches in which he made it clear that France sided with the Allies. Bayeux is a very, very pro-American town, partly because there are a lot of American tourists, and partly because we helped liberate them. And here's the Bayeux Cathedral. It is steeped in deep, deep history. This cathedral you see right here was consecrated in 1077 in the presence of William, Duke of Normandy, and it was right here that William may have forced Harold Godwinson to take an oath of support to him, the breaking of which led to the Norman conquest of England. There is a crypt underneath the main floor at the Bayeux Cathedral, and it's worth heading down there. It's a Norman crypt, and it's the oldest part of the church, dating back to the first half of the 11th century. At the beginning of the 13th century, they filled it in and closed it during the construction of the new choir above it, and they forgot about it for 200 years. But now it's kind of dusted off, and you can visit it. If you're like me, your understanding of the Norman conquest of England is a little fuzzy. Who did what, and when, and why? But things clear up when you understand the story told by the Bayeux Tapestry. This tapestry is actually an embroidery. It's about 224 feet long and about 20 inches wide. And it tells the story of the Norman conquest of England. So this is history told by the victor, which you may or may not view as propaganda. The detail and the scope of this work of art makes it one of the human-made wonders of the world. And the condition is unbelievable, considering its age and what it's been through. For example, during the French Revolution, the tapestry was confiscated as public property to be used for covering military wagons, and a local lawyer rescued it and stored it in his house until the troubles were over. Bayeux is certainly not the best restaurant town in France, but we did manage to find some really good quiche. And this dish here, which was chunks of different kind of fish on a bed of sauerkraut. That was fantastic. Now let me share our D-Day tour. We went with a tour company called Bayeux Shuttle, and our guide was Pascal. We did not know what to expect, but Pascal was brilliant, and it made all the difference. It was perhaps the highlight of the whole trip to France. We'd considered renting a car and going ourselves, but we're so glad we went on the tour with Pascal. Now, one can never come close to understanding the hell that was D-Day. But with a really good tour guide, you can get closer. You can maybe begin to understand that you don't understand. Try to imagine the sound of these shells exploding yards away. And the place is, look how large that is. Now that's going to make a big bang. Try to imagine the adrenaline, the fear, the confusion, and the Allied bravery. It's staggering when you imagine how brave the Allied soldiers were on D-Day. Now, this is the POV of a German soldier inside a fortification. And he would have been able to see out there hundreds and hundreds of invading ships. Every student in the United States be taught at length about what happened here so that they might have some appreciation for how many gave so much. Now here's the D-Day Museum at St. Mary Glace. This is a C-47, a military version of the DC-3. One thing that becomes apparent very quickly in the museum is the extreme weight of the gear that the soldiers had to carry into battle. Now here's the church at St. Mary Glace, where famously paratrooper John Steele had his parachute hang up on the spire, and he had to hang there for 2 hours pretending to be dead until the Germans took him prisoner. And there's a fence around the area that still has dents in it made by bullets during that battle. Now we're headed to a most interesting church. The U.S. Airborne parachuted behind Utah Beach on D-Day, and their mission was to destroy a German strategic route near a little town, tiny town called Angoville-en-Plan. And 2 U.S. medics set up an aid station in this 700-year-old church. They'd actually go out onto the battlefield and look for wounded soldiers, and they would treat both German soldiers and Allied soldiers. You can still see the blood in the pews. The reason I'm freezing this frame is you can see at the top there a small hole right beside the main hole there. That's where a shell came through, but it didn't explode, and it landed on this stone right here and did not explode. After D-Day, a couple days after D-Day, 2 German soldiers came down from the belfry. They'd been hiding there the whole time. This is the American cemetery in Normandy, and now you will see the lowering of the flag. And now back to Paris for days 5 and 6 of our relatively short trip to France.
All right, we've been walking a long time and we've worked up an appetite and we're looking forward to some escargot and some oysters. So the search is on. Let's do that.
So just walking down the street on a drizzly, damp Paris evening, happened upon this place, which looked perfect. They were so proud of their oysters and their service and their restaurant, and there were only maybe 6 or 7 tables in there. I was surprised that there was even a table available. So Shannon and I decided this was our place. And we told them to bring it on. And you bet they did.
Oui, j'ai vu que tu étais dessus. So, we have 4 types. Normandy, Utah Beach, Didet. The name of his oyster is a white pearl. And the man in charge is Mr. Papin. You will forget maybe everything, but it's one of the 2 best from Normandy. This we are really proud. This is a Pouce en Clair. This is one of the 2 last red label in France. In a few years maybe it will be finished. It's 2 oysters by square meter during a few months and a lot of control. Everything has to be done by hand on the floor in a clair and have to be a certain chewy, a certain weight, and it's 2 oysters by square meter during 9 months. Bébé Pouce, Breton.
And Austrax.
Breton, from the lovely port of Cancale. Cancale en Bretagne. Et le Austrarigan, maybe one of the best oysters in the world right now. And we are maybe only 2-3 restaurants, no more in Paris and big suburb of Paris. So it's unique oyster. I have a question. Do you put something on your oyster usually?
Lemon.
Yeah. And your husband also?
No.
No. What you put, sir, on? Nothing?
Oh, there we go. No lemon, no Tabasco, no BS. Okay, the first time I tried this, I botched it. I'm right-handed, left hand, short knife, swoop.
No comparison. And it depends how you serve.
It's like a mist in the sea, no gravel.
You are inviting people to your house. This is
Deep, kind of big, kind of meaty.
and even for
Spectacular.
Boy, that place is special. You know, some restaurants leave a lasting impression. That one certainly did. We did a lot of walking on this trip. Actually, 43 miles in 6 days and nights. But it goes quickly because there's so much to see, so much to do, and so much to eat. For example, the famous French macarons.
So one thing you always hear about in Paris are the macarons. They have all kinds of them. I have here a chocolate macaron. And you might think, well, they can't be all that good. You'd be wrong. They're unbelievable. Let's take a look. And there are 2 kinds. There's the factory-made kind and the kind made in the pastry shop. This probably is made here because it's uneven. That's kind of the secret. And I'm going to take a bite here and show you the inside. It's chewy and gooey inside, like a brownie. It's like a kind of like a brownie with a lightly crispy outside. And can you see the real soft gooiness in there? It's delicious. While we're at this, here's a citrus tartlet. I am not going to try to pronounce it in French, but flaky, beautiful.
To be honest, Paris blew away my expectations. And I now am a huge fan. I love it. I think it's very livable, it's warm and friendly, contrary to what people will tell you. And it certainly is a food place. Had this interesting experience. Check this out.
Okay, I was walking down the street in Paris and saw this. It looks kind of like a landmine or something. I asked the woman what it is. It was at a street market. She called it a toot-toot or something like that, forgive me if I'm wrong. I said, what is it? She said, it's filled with goat meat. It's just so weird, and that's so weird to me. I had to try it. So I'm not going to bother to try to take a bite and talk about it. I will take a bite and do the voiceover after. So here goes. I'll show you the inside, though.
So what's going on here? I don't see any meat there. No goat meat, no meat of any kind. Maybe it's in the middle here. Let me look. No. What? What?
So lost in translation. As I just told you, I bought this kind of big landmine looking thing. It seems burnt on the top, which it is. I asked the woman what it is. She said, a toot-toot. I said, what's inside? She said, she said goat meat. I was feeling actually a little bad about eating goat meat because I like goats. So I opened it up and there's no goat meat. Shannon said, it tastes like a corn muffin. And then click! I think she said cornmeal, not goat meat. And I'm sort of relieved. But there you go. A toot-toot. Kind of a corn muffin, a big giant landmine corn muffin.
Boy, I can see how people fall in love with Paris. It has an inviting feel, especially these corner restaurants, the way they're decorated with the plants up top and the balcony, and the beautiful lighting inside. Here's the last restaurant we went to. It was a little different. It was kind of upbeat. There was some dude playing the accordion. And we had these wonderful treats, escargot, that probably duck. And I had this dish. It's called œuf omelette, and it is eggs poached in red wine and served in a bourguignon sauce. So spectacular. It may be the best thing I've ever had. And the moment we got home, Shannon made them. And I'll say she made them at least as well as this restaurant did. The best. When it comes to food, there's a couple of ways to go. You can research online. A lot of times those places are good, but crowded and expensive. Or you can just go by atmosphere. The main thing is just get away from the tourist sites, at least like 4 blocks, and you're likely to do pretty well. Here's another subject.
You know, let's talk about lodging. Shannon and I don't book much in advance. Actually, generally, just the first night. Because you never know what's going to happen. Are you going to be able to make it at all? Will the plane get canceled? And you might not like your first night lodging. Actually, we had looked at a place that looked cool online, but when we got there, it was in a terrible neighborhood. We were so glad we didn't book the whole week there. Are you going to get caught without a place to stay? It can happen. Probably not Paris.
So we didn't book this place till the day before. We were in Bayeux, and then just before heading back to Paris, we booked this, and it was a big win. I mean, this is all us. This might be a common space, but there was no one else there, so it ended up being all us. It may be that other guests can use that space. I think this may be a common space too, because there are other doors that might go to other rooms, but I don't know, because I did not see any other guests. But it was certainly available for use. Very spacious and decorated very well. And the furniture, they made it a big deal to point out, was all artisanal furniture, refurbished, really old furniture, or artisanal new furniture. I mean, look at that. It was a score. When we visit cities, we like to stay in different hotels in different neighborhoods because each one has its own personality. This neighborhood, by the way, is Saint-Germain, which is quite different from our first neighborhood, Le Marais. Marais means marsh, and Le Marais was built on a marsh. I do want to thank Shannon, my wonderful travel partner, who's just so resourceful and so much fun on all these trips, and a great camera person and producer. If you like the video, subscribe to the channel and click on the bell to get notified of future posts. I'd hate to have you miss out. The most important thing, of course, is to remember to travel lightly.